Half-Life 2, a true masterpiece of a game. It has its weak points though, and today we're gonna tackle what are, in my opinion, the weakest chapters in Half-Life 2. I will exclude Red Letter Day and Black Mesa East, cause I'm not a fan of how Half-Life 2 handles narration segments. Trapping the player inside a room with characters speaking and no way to interact or do anything meaningful in the meantime is never a fun time in my opinion. So I will cut those two out, or else both Black Mesa East and Red Letter Day would have ranked as the worst chapters in the game. The first worst chapter in Half-Life 2, in my opinion, is Water Hazard. Hot take, I know, a lot of people seem to love Water Hazard. I believe that the only good parts in this chapter are its title and the Combine fights. The latter are overall well structured with lots of cool angles and areas to butcher those pesky Metro Cops in. Even though Water Hazards present a huge map, all these hostile encounters take place in close quarters, which in my opinion is where Half-Life 2 combat shines the most. I particularly like the containers area that leads to an hangar area where you get to massacre quite an hefty amount of combines with a shiny brand new revolver. The last cool part of Water Hazard is the atmosphere. The sliminess and murkiness of the greenish water really manages to capture what an hazardous place Gordon is traversing through, and the hollowness of the landscape alongside the scarcity of vegetation makes the player wonder on what the Combines have been up to since they managed to dry most of the canal water and turned it into a bare and toxic wasteland. Little side note, I think that the environment in Water Hazard would have been the perfect habitat for bull squids to thrive in. Imagine killing them with your airboat, would have been fun. At this point you might think I actually like Water Hazard, but no. In fact, Combines fight aside, I feel that gameplay wise this chapter only got tedium and frustration to offer. If you're playing on hard, you really are at the mercy of the Hunter Chopper Pulse Rifle RNG, which will inevitably chip down your health, putting the player in awkward situations where their HPs are too low to progress, and thus they will have to recur to either using cheats, sending a prayer to the RNG gods, or restarting the whole chapter. Also, after a while, the whole helicopter chasing you trope gets tiring. The chapter already drags on for too long and yeah. Water Hazard gets old fast. I also particularly hate the sound of the helicopter pulse rifle. It just gets under my skin. The same applies for the gunships and striders. I'm also not a big fan of the hovercraft. Don't get me wrong, its controls are not bad and the driving is quite smooth. The problem is that it's so smooth it becomes dull after a while, especially when you have no pulse cannon to fire from. I wish you could at least drift a bit with the airboat. Holding your W key and turning when needs be is not so fun. And the mines at times are kinda tricky to dodge because the airboat can't steer too much. The Highway 17 scout car is much more fun to use in my opinion. The steering is better and who doesn't like a turbo button in his car? Also, the puzzles are nothing to write home about. Two of them are physics based and the last one requires a little backtracking to do. And it's never nice to backtrack, especially when the game doesn't hint at you that you need to go back to your previous steps to proceed. It's nothing complicated, but it's not exciting either. Perhaps back in 2004, completing a physics-based puzzle could have hit differently, but nowadays it feels a bit bland. Overall, on a scale from 1 to 10, Water Hazard earns itself a 6.5 out of 10. It's just too much of the samey gameplay loop. The next worst chapter is, you guess, Follow Freeman. So the main problem with Follow Freeman is that it's basically a continuation of Anti-Citizen 1. and as such, you get to repeat the same gameplay loop of the previous chapter, which mostly consists in murdering endless waves of combined soldiers, which is fine to me, but it does get a little repetitive, with the added annoyance of having to face 3 new foes such as the Striders, ground turrets and mines. I have listed them in order of annoyance. Let's start from the Striders. Striders are a pain in the ass to deal with. First of all, they tank way too many RPG shots. It's 5 rockets on easy mode and 7 missiles on normal and hard. 7 freaking missile. That's actually a lot, especially if we consider that Gordon can only carry the abysmal number of 3 rockets. Because of this, the best thing to do is to camp the area around an RPG ammo crate until you have decimated them all. And this obviously discourages movement and exploration, which is not good. In addition, the RPG reload time is quite long, and as a consequence, tearing down a Strider takes a long time and effort. Therefore, what should have been an epic final fight before reaching the Citadel turns into a repetitive cycle of peeking out of a corner, shoot a rocket, and crawling back to cover to save your ass. It's not that cool or fun in my opinion. Another menacing aspect of the Striders are their pulse rifle. Their shots are in fact particularly menacing, especially the final shots of the bursts they fire at the player. The Combine Over wiki kindly informs us that their final bullets have an almost perfect accuracy, which makes dodging their shots pretty difficult if you're out of cover, and this explains why, no matter how much I strafed left and right, I would always get it in the end. Similarly to the Waterazar case, if you're low on HP and saved your game in a bad position, you are toasted. I honestly find gunships a little more annoying because they can shoot down your missiles, but at least in Half-Life 2 you never get to fight more than 2 at a time, and on normal they only take 5 rockets instead of 7. Now let's talk about the ground turrets, which are actually a newly introduced foe in Follow Freeman, and even though it's a novelty, they are not too particularly exciting to face. In fact, they're just plain ground turrets that do not even blow up in fancy ways once you destroy them. Fighting them is also quite annoying, especially on hard because they deal a lot of damage and they will certainly test your grenade throwing skills. I particularly despise the way 2 turrets at the start of the level are positioned because avoiding damage from them is almost impossible. So yeah, these ground turrets are a big no for me. The mine room puzzle is cool though. I used to hate it cause I always wanted to brute force my way through it. But in reality, it's a nice little platforming and puzzly sequence that slows down the pace from all the shooting. Since we have mentioned this, let's get to the Hopper Mines, which is the final enemy in Follow Freeman that I despise. Why do I dislike it? It's cause I don't think they're much of a threat to the player who is aware about how Hopper Mines work, and thus they just turn into a nuisance with the sole function of slowing down your path, since if you want to play it safe you will have to stop, whip out your gravity gun, hold down the secondary fire to turn the Hopper into a loyal friend, and then I usually just shoot them at a wall because there aren't really any moments where you can use them strategically. Much like the ground turrets, the Hopper Mines are nothing exciting, and in my opinion they add nothing new to the game, but I guess their model looks nice and they sound cute. To deal the fatal blow to the Follow Freeman chapter, I want to criticize the emptiness of some of the environments. I just can't help but feel that some of the streets area are lacking in details and appear to be slightly rushed. But I might be nitpicking here, since as much as the Source engine still looks good to this day, it's still a 19 years old engine, and perhaps there are technical limitations to the level of detail the devs could have added in outside areas. So Fall of Freeman gets a 5. I feel like this latter chapter, leading to the entrance to the Citadel, tries to build a climax by showing the whole CD17 in ruins and flames, and by shoving down the player's throat multiple tough opponents such as the Striders to fight, which they sure are a challenge, but they're a boring challenge. So I just can't like Fall of Freeman. What's your opinion, guys? Let me know in the comments, and subscribe if you like the videos.